Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, Frankie Stats Janisch. And their co-host, the man of controversy, Mr. Brian the Duke David. And finally, your host, Aaron Turner. Let's get ready to Schmoedown.
What's going on, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? It is episode number 32 of the Schmoedown Rundown, the official after show for the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. My name is Aaron. I am your host, as always. Joining me today, not Frank Janisch. He's not here. He'll be gone for the next 2 weeks. So if you can do stats, please inquire within, now hiring. But also here, my good friend, co-host, Brian Davids. What's going on, man?
Aaron, I'm doing well because after this weekend, I'll never have to correct anyone's Gal Gadot pronunciation ever again.
Let's talk a little bit about who we're going to have later in the show, and that is the Mantz man, Mr. Scott Mantz. Will join us later for an interview after we recap his match with Hal Rudnick. We'll get to that in a little bit. So stay tuned for Scott Mantz, first time ever on the Schmoedown Rundown. But let's jump into some news right now. Not a whole lot. We got some schedule changes this week, but there's only really one piece of news I want to key on this week, Brian, and that is Rotten Tomatoes replacing Team Heroes in the number one contender team match against the Night's Watch. The winner gets a shot at either Top 10 or Team Patriots after Collision. So what did you think of this development? Was it the right call, or did you still want to see Team Heroes get a chance?
This is absolutely the right call. We talked a lot about who should Rotten Tomatoes play, and this just makes the most sense because Heroes really had no business being the number one contender, potentially, if they won. So I love that we're getting the marquee matchup at Collision, Team Rotten Tomatoes, my favorite team, versus the up-and-coming Nerds Watch, Rachel the Crusher Cushing, Ken Knapsack, of course. It's going to be a phenomenal match. It makes Collision, I think Collision's going to be the best event ever to this point. I think the matches in Collision with this edition this is now the greatest event we've ever had. So I'm all for it. No offense to Heroes, but again, Rotten Tomatoes is the better team. And whomever wins this match, whoever goes on to face Top 10 or Patriots, that's going to be a dogfight in and of itself. So great move. What do you think?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that the team division right now is super strong. Strong enough to where you're kind of moving people around to get the best contenders. So right now you have Patriots, Top 10. We'll throw Heroes in there for now. Rotten Tomatoes. You got Night's Watch. You got Wolves of Steel on the periphery. So you've got 6 good teams right there. And that's a deep team division. So I'm actually really intrigued by how this is going to all shake out just in time for the Ultimate Team Schmoedown, because that's going to be phenomenal too, to see all of these teams going back and forth with each other. So that's the first thing that came to mind.
Did you even mention IGN?
Yeah, I didn't even mention IGN. That's how deep this is right now. So that's what I'm looking forward to right now. I'm going a little bit further than Collision right now, but I mean, that's 7 teams now. We could have an 8th. Throw Team 6 Series in there. You got 8 strong teams for the Ultimate Schmoedown. That's going to be amazing. That's going to be fantastic.
After that performance against IGN, most points ever in a team match, I don't see how you could possibly leave Rotten Tomatoes out of that number one contender match. So great move, Mr. Commish.
Very well done. Let's jump in now to the team recap this week. It was the Night Sisters, Emma Fyfe and Joelle Monique, making their return, going up against a new team, Deep Cuts, Thad Williams and Aaron Wilhelm. And it did not go well for the Night Sisters in round 1. It was Deep Cuts with 11 points, Night Sisters with 7. In round 2, Deep Cuts led 18-12 going into the third, where it was the Night Sisters, unfortunately, only getting their 2-pointer and missing the 3 and the 5. And Deep Cuts TKO'd the Night Sisters 18-14. Brian, what did you think of this?
Well, it went about as I expected. I predicted Deep Cuts to win, even though there was no data on them. But I want to jump back to a couple things in the pre-match. I've noticed something lately when it comes to the entrances, as players and teams keep coming out too soon while Christian's still announcing them. So I feel like they have to have someone give a cue backstage, because there's been a trend for a while now. Christian joked about it with McQueenie, but it's been more than just McQueenie, as everybody's coming out too soon. So whomever can go back there and just cue the competitors as to when they should come out, I would really appreciate it, because it just seems weird when they come out too soon. It's not a huge deal, but it's something that I keep noticing. And the match went as expected. Deep Cuts got the win, and Christian basically did this as a way to pay it forward to the guys that work behind the scene. Aaron's the Schmoedown editor. He's the guy that's putting in all those fancy visual effects lately. So I like that he's kind of rewarding his guys that work hard every single week to bring us this show. And he joked about it, if they lose, you may never see them again. But I like that he paid it forward to the guys behind the scenes. Night Sisters, I don't think the future is too bright for them. I like Joelle, I like Emma, but I don't think their future's too bright. Emma is basically on her way to inner geekdom. Joelle sounded like she wanted to follow, but I don't think they have a bright future, even though they're apparently scheduled for Real Rejects next. So what is your reaction to the match, Aaron?
Well, my first reaction right away was, does there need to be some kind of standing rule or something to where if you're a team that in your first two matches you've been TKO'd or KO'd, like, I think your third match should kind of be an instant breakup match, because we've already seen twice, and this is no offense to the people that are in the actual game, but it's like, you got whooped twice, kind of. So and you got teams that have played better and have been in closer matches that are in elimination matches, so why should they be kind of treated any different? That's kind of my thoughts on that. But, for Aaron and for Thad to come in there and first time being the dudes behind the scenes, I thought they did fine.
Yeah.
I thought their little, the baseball gimmick they had where they had their own jerseys, I thought that was kind of neat. It was unique, because, how many players have had their own jerseys made just for this? But I thought that was kind of neat. But I'm with you on this. I think it kind of went the way we expected. I kind of expected Deep Cuts to take over. And I think after the second round, it was just a foregone conclusion that the Night Sisters, it just was not going to be their game.
I like how Deep Cuts admitted that they've been on Christian's case. And can you imagine producing over 100 episodes of the Schmoedown? You're going to want to play. You're going to have that itch when you see how fun it is, how entertaining it is. So I don't blame them for getting on Christian's case about playing. I just think it's cool that he let them play, because I've said this before, but every match that is played costs money. That is production budget being used. So that is why every match is planned carefully. Every participant is selected carefully, because money is spent, and you want to bring in people from the outside that can bring in new viewers. And Thad and Aaron, they work behind the scenes. They don't really have their own audience. So that's when this is a nice thing that Christian has done to pay it forward, because he's not gaining much out of this like he would with IGN or Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. They bring an audience. These guys do not, because they're behind the scenes. So I really appreciate that Christian is taking care of his staff.
And they took the easily just lost and gone away, but a TKO in their first match, it's got to look promising. I'm sure they'll get another match in the future. As per usual, everybody seems to want to call out Team Patriots, and that's all well and good because they're the champs and they should be called out. But do you think that we're going to see Deep Cuts again?
I thought they were going to be the next team to play Real Rejects. I thought that was the next match that seemed the most obvious. But Christian went with the Night Sisters instead. I think he's dying to get Real Rejects a win, just because their record, again, warrants a retirement match, a breakup match. So I think it's more of a squash match. He wants to get them a W. But I think Deep Cuts and Real Rejects would have been a great match.
Yeah, not a bad idea. But I hope that we do see him again, because, like I said, a TKO in your opening just that's a bright future right there. So hopefully we'll see him back.
But don't you think they're evenly matched though? Don't you think that would be a pretty even, a pretty fair bout? I mean, it sounds balanced on paper, at least to me.
Well, I'm not sure because the sample size for deep cuts is 1 game, and the sample size for real rejects, I think, they've had like 4. So I don't know what the comparison would be.
Well, again, I'm happy for Thad and Aaron, and thanks for all the great post-production they've been doing lately, especially with those visual effects.
Hop into singles recap number 1. We had a double header, and this was the undercard. It was Stacey Howard versus Jonathan the Vulture Voico. We're going to go deep into this one because it was one heck of a match. First things first.
Yeah, I've got a first things first as well. I'll let you start with your first things first, though.
Backstage segment. You've got Voico and Perry coming up to Stacey as she's studying or whatever she was doing, and they ask her to join in a group, a faction with Tough Beats. Stacey declines, but she said something that made me laugh my head off before we even got started. Is when Perry said, you can rap, right? And then Stacey countered with, well, they do call me the Pop Reba McEntire. I about lost it. That is hilarious. But what did you have? That's just my thoughts on the pre-match, but what did you have?
That was a good line. But my issue with that sketch was, and I said sketch because of our friend of the show, Ken Knapsack, my issue was, why did they even do this sketch when they already scheduled Tough Beats to play 6 Degrees well before this match had aired a couple weeks ago? They already scheduled that elimination match 2 weeks ago, so we knew that she was going to say no to their offers. So, I don't know, it didn't make much sense to me why they even did this sketch, or at the very least, you could have held back on that match's scheduling, or at least the announcement of that match's scheduling 2 weeks ago. That way, we did not know the outcome of this match. So, again, it's just a matter of continuity, something I've stressed for a while. They really could benefit from a script supervisor, someone who keeps things in order so that the schedule that comes out doesn't spoil what we haven't seen yet on the screen.
But still a fun segment nonetheless. But let's jump into round 1 on this. It was Stacey coming out on fire, going 7 of 8 for 7 points. Jonathan, 3 of 8 for 3 points. And Stacey, once again, making me laugh out loud during the Hannibal question, taken for a discount Julianne Moore. That one got me riled up as well. So, Brian, take me through round 1. What did you think?
Yeah, State of the Union, one of the sequels to the Triple X franchise. I mean, I thought for sure Jonathan would have gotten this. It was a movie aimed at the male demographic, and yet Stacey was the one to get it. Dakota Fanning, 2009 animated fantasy. Coraline, Stacey once again goes up 2-0. Who was the name, or what was the name of Raul Julia's character in the Addams Family? Gomez Addams, 2-0. Nice try, but again, 2-0 Stacey. Sean Penn, 2001 Oscar nomination for I Am Sam, 3-1 Stacey Howard. That was Jonathan's first point of the match. Danny Glover, Angels in the Outfield, a film I used to watch a lot as a kid. 4-2 Stacey Howard. Both of them got it right. That continued with Evangeline Lilly as Hope Pym and Ant-Man. 5-3 Stacey Howard. Question 7, Hannibal. Clarice, Julianne Moore took the place of Jodie Foster. 6-3 Stacey. And then question 8, Stacey, in one of her 2 amazing guesses this episode, Ivan Reitman directed Arnold Schwarzenegger in 3 films. One of those was Kindergarten Cop. Stacey goes up 7-3. And Jonathan kind of told me how his day was going to go when he guessed Commando as an Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ivan Reitman film, which if you know the work of Ivan Reitman, you know that Commando is completely opposite of what his typical work is. So that kind of told me where this match was headed, but unbelievable round from Stacey. What are your remaining thoughts in round 1?
All my thoughts were on Stacey. I knew she was good. I thought she would do well. I didn't think she would do that well. I got to be honest. 7 of 8, and she wasn't even sweating it. Yeah, she had the one guess, and outside of not knowing what Mr. Adams' first name was, she would have had a perfect round. I was super impressed with her, and I think you nailed it. I think after the first round, we knew how this was going to go for Jonathan. Even though he came out to the Her Majesty of Secret Service theme and the whole James Bond with the martini, I like that. I like that bit. I liked his confidence. But it did not seem like the Vulture was going to get there.
At least he was well dressed as he was losing. Typically the expression is look good, play good. And while Vulture looked good, he did not play very well. So the expression, I guess, is not foolproof.
I would say that he was actually dressed to kill.
There you go. But he wasn't licensed to kill.
Oh, well played.
So Stacey takes her 4-point lead into round 2. Stacey Howard spins action adventure. I need to start saying Sassy Stacey Howard because she's got a new nickname, and it's going to be awfully hard to say without screwing up. Sassy Stacey. But I like it. I like it a lot. Question 1, the name of Ben Affleck's character in Armageddon. AJ, Stacey goes up 9-3. Question 2, Cindy in Commando worked what occupation? Sassy Stacey threw out a guess, stewardess, and it turned out to be right. She was a flight attendant. Stacey takes the lead 11-3. One of the most amazing guesses in Schmoedown history. Makuga makes educated guesses, but this was a blind guess. She had nothing to go on here. Makuga typically has something to go off of when he pulls out his educated guesses. This was pure magic.
It reminded me of the Sam Witwer in the Star Wars team match where he buzzed in without hearing, 3 words of the question, didn't hear the rest of it, and he just said, it was that level for me.
Yeah, well, question 3, the technology in Furious 7, God's Eye. Again, what a detail-oriented question that she managed to pull out. She goes up 13-3. Question 4, Rogue in the Losers. She missed the question, but she did not ask for multiple choice. You know how crazy this makes me when players do not utilize the rules to their advantage. And they supposedly are told the rules before the match, not just during the match, but before the match. So this is really frustrating. I'm not going to hold it against her too much. I'm just frustrated because her unbelievable match could have been even better had she asked for multiple choice. I'm confident she would have gotten it right in that case. But it was the end of a 6-point turn for Stacey. Like I said, lots of detail-based questions. These were not gimme answers. And yet, those Schmoedown.com writers, they all seem to succeed in the Schmoedown. So Schmoedown.com seems to be a breeding ground for great Schmoedown players. That may not apply to Frank Janisch, but it applies to most everybody else.
Not even here to defend himself.
Exactly right. Now, the Vulture, he spins Julia Roberts. Now, something else that drives me insane, you know what I'm going to say, is when people respin, they don't change the category that they're spinning from. He spun once again, starting with Julia Roberts, and then he landed once again on Julia Roberts for his respin. Had he moved the ticker to another category, he would have landed on another category. This happens all the time, and yet no one's listening to me. I give this valuable advice, Aaron. If competitors listen to me on this show, they will never get a respin like they've been getting. All they got to do is take my advice. That's it.
There's gotta be some formula where if you spin it and you get this, there's just what is the probability of all those? I have to ask Frank this, I guess, but of all those pie slices to spin it and then spin it again at a random speed, I'm sure there's some science involved to get the same one. Like what are the odds of that?
But
and it happens all the time.
I don't think it's a random speed. I think they are trying to replicate the strength of their last spin. They're trying to repeat the way they spun it last time. They're putting the same amount of oomph into it, and that leads to the same result, especially now that there are less categories on this particular wheel. So people, if you do not want to respin the same category, change the category before you respin. It works like a charm. Trust me. Question 1, who is the villain foil in Ocean's 11? Andy Garcia. Vulture had to go to multiple choice on that, but he's now got 4 points to Stacey's 13. Question 2, Who did Julia Roberts have true feelings for in My Best Friend's Wedding? Dermot Mulroney. He gets it on multiple choice once again. 13-5, Stacy. Who was Julia Roberts' character's name in Steel Magnolias? Great movie. Multiple choice, Shelby. 13-6, Stacey Howard. So Vulture, he's mounting a comeback a little bit here. He's not given up quite yet. So maybe that's where the great suit comes into play. It's not going to let him quit. Or who's the actor that played the boyfriend in Aaron Brockovich? Multiple choice once again. Aaron Eckhart. 13-7, Stacy. So Vulture again, not quitting. Multiple choice, got him some points. What were your thoughts at the end of Vulture's 4-point turn?
Yeah, he played small ball, which is what I like to call it. He went all multiple choice. He played it the right way, kind of thought it out, and ended up having an okay round. Once he got all the questions right, didn't leave any opportunity to steal for Stacy in a category that we knew she was strong in. She wanted it. She was chomping at the bit to get that. So good for him to stay the course, stave off elimination because he was in danger of getting KO'd. So good for him. It was building his confidence, but I think the writing was still on the wall after round one.
What's that golf term? Lay it up or layup? Lay it up?
I don't play golf, so I couldn't tell you.
I think it's lay it up where you play safe. You play small ball. I think that's the golf version of it. But round 3, 13-7, Stacy, 6-point lead going into round 3. Vulture was asked the first film with sound. That's The Jazz Singer. That's a tough 2-point question if you ask me. Stacy's still up 13-9. Vulture's 3-pointer, Michael Imperioli's character's name, and Goodfellas. A lot of character name questions in this particular match. The name was Spider. I did not remember that. Vulture did not remember that either. Stacy keeps her lead 13-9. Vulture gets his 5-pointer, Tomb Raider, goes up 14-13. Stacy's 2-pointer, Alex Owens in Flashdance for the win, 15-14. Stacey Howard wins. Yeah, it was a 1-point win, but the score does not reflect how dominant she was in this match. The storyline, though, she made it look like she was about to join Tough Beats, and then she said, nuh-uh. She dropped her hands, and she went to go meet Miss Movies and Jay, who were on hand waiting behind the curtain. Their faction remains a heel faction, or is now, doesn't remain one, it has become a heel faction. Miss Movies became a heel, and now Stacy has followed her lead, and Jay is their unofficial manager, I would say. I mean, perhaps he's their official manager, but Jay is in charge of that stable. So, thoughts on Stacy's win, Aaron?
The Urban Gladiator brings a certain edge. I think we can agree to that, and now we see that rubbing off on Brienne and Stacy, and I think that not only were they good characters before with their entrances and well-liked and things like that, now people like them even more, which is, that's not easy to do. To take your personality, which is like, bright and bubbly, and then flip it and still make it work. So it's kudos to them for doing that, for making people so invested in them as a team that they'll follow them face or heel and love them just the same. And I like the attitude, man. I love the dismissed. I love all of that. Jay is their mouthpiece, even telling Emma, like, oh, you can talk in a second. So the Urban Gladiator, right guy, right manager with the right team. I like where this is going. I'm stoked for this.
I know I was a bit critical of the sketch to start this match, considering the schedule was announced ahead of time, but I was still super entertained by how this went down. Yeah, we knew what was coming, but it was still entertaining nonetheless. So knowing the outcome already did not affect the enjoyment watching it. So I cannot wait to see what this heel stable does. It's about time that we have a strong female faction that are heels as well. They're just a fun team to watch. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, even if they somehow lose to Tough Beats, which they won't, they're going to beat Tough Beats. Even if they somehow lose, though, 6 Degrees, they're not going anywhere. Because Stacy and Brienne have both played well in singles. They both had their coming out parties. And this match is actually very similar to Miss Movie's coming out party a few weeks ago when she beat Perry. Very similar. They both made statements. They both became heels. And even if they somehow lose in teams to Tough Beats, I don't think they're being retired. I don't think they're being broken up. I don't think the commission is going to let that happen. So They're still going to beat Tough Beats, but even if they somehow don't, do not worry about 6 Degrees, folks. They are too fun. They are too entertaining right now, especially with the Urban Gladiator and the heel angle going right now.
Well, Christian even said it on Inside Schmoedown this week, talking about Brienne's character. He said he's thoroughly entertained by that character. He's a big fan of it. So if you've got the eye of the commissioner, it's only going to be good things. 2 things that I'm going to remember about this match. Number 1, it's a Stacey Howard coming out party.
Yeah.
And she was fantastic. And I don't think I personally didn't know what to expect out of her, but when she put on a performance like this, she's got my attention now, for sure.
I said a couple weeks ago that Michael Keaton will soon be the only Vulture in town, as Voitko just couldn't live up to the promise he showed in his team's debut. He's blown some easy questions in big moments, and some of that can be excused to pressure, but when he's not landing easy questions in low-pressure situations or making reasonable guesses, I mean, that's kind of a problem. So I don't see Vulture's career lasting much longer. I like the guy. I like his style. But for some reason, the promise he showed in that debut is just not it just hasn't come back since.
It just seems like he's on the cusp, but never gets there. And after, you can just kind of tell when it leaves him. After round 1, I just like, oh, he's done. He's done already. But we've seen it. We saw in the free-for-all. We've seen flashes, but he's just yet to put it together. And that sucks because, like you said, he's a great dude. And I hope it comes together for him. But I think in this particular rivalry we have going now between these 2 teams, it's not looking good for Tough Beats at all.
Again, even if you have to sit out for a while, retire for a while, that's not the end. It's not the end.
Right.
A lot of players can sit out for a few months, 6 months, maybe even a year. I mean, Mantz and Rudnick were essentially out of singles for almost a year. It's not quite, but almost. You can go study for a year, and you can come back and make a statement, then you're back in play. You're back in the fold. So just because it doesn't work out for you right now doesn't mean it can't work out for you in the future.
And speaking of the Mantz Man and Hal Rudnick, let's move in to the last singles recap of this week. It was the Mantz Man, Scott Mantz, versus Hal Rudnick, a possible father-son matchup. We'll just leave it at that.
The Maury Povich match, as I call it.
Oh, you are not the father indeed. The first note that I have about this match was Booker T, in his pre-match segment, I think this is the first time, Brian, you may want to correct me on this, that he plugged the WWE in a promo. Did you catch this?
I did catch that. And he started his plugs at the top of it too. I think that's unusual for him. And did it seem like he stopped himself for an edit? Only the edit wasn't made? Did it seem like he restarted his point in a certain segment?
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Or maybe that was just part of it, but he kind of stopped, looked away, then started again.
I really enjoyed it though. I really liked his intensity.
Oh, yeah.
And any time you can, plug some WWE wrestling, I'm into that. So I appreciate that.
Regarding these Booker T segments, I love how the background or the backdrop always changes. I mean, he's used the same location a couple times, but almost every time he does this, he's in a different spot. Sometimes it's a kitchen. Sometimes it's a radio studio. You never know where he's going to be. So I'm getting this weird entertainment out of where is Booker T going to record it this time? Because it keeps changing.
Where in the world is Booker T?
There you go. That could be a new addendum to this segment, much like Josh and Cody have turned the fantasy segments into a variety show, basically.
I mean, we have Booker T doing these previews. We've seen The Rock with John Roca and being talked about holding the Movie Trivia Schmoedown belt. And just to hear Booker T mention Brock Lesnar in the same breath as the Schmoedown feels right. Feels right to me. So I personally enjoyed that. Also, before we get into it, Hal Rudnick, this has to be some kind of record as well. I think he's the first ever person to give his opponent a pre-match gift and it not be a joke. What did you think of that?
That was interesting. He gave Mantz a Star Trek alarm clock, and he also got some amazing visual effects as he got heat vision during his entrance. And We saw some visual effects in the fantasy segment for the first match as Makuga made Cody disappear, but then Rudnick got heat vision for his entrance. So lots of gifts. And I think Aaron Wilhelm, I think he's so happy that Christian let him on the Schmoedown that he's putting in some overtime by doing all these visual effects lately. Because the last few weeks, they've done a bunch of sound effects, visual effects. I think Aaron was so thrilled he got to be on the show that he's giving Christian a bit more. So I like to see that stuff.
Yeah, and it looks great too. It looks really good. It's well done. Let's jump into round one where it was something. Scott Mantz goes 1 of 8 for 1 point. Hal, not much better, 2 of 8 for 2 points. So I want to stop right here. Where did you think this was going at this point?
It was concerning. We saw one of these. We saw one of these rounds recently. I'm blanking on the match at the moment, but yeah, I mean, what can you do? Round ones can sometimes be. I think it was Android. Was it Android who had a
John Humphrey? John
Humphrey, that's right. Android John Humphrey. Look, it happens. Sometimes round ones can be really easy. Sometimes they can be really difficult. But more importantly, though, the match did pick up. The match as a product, as a piece of entertainment, really picked up in round two. There's a big reason for that. But, I mean, what can you do? The Edge of 17, question 8, that question regarding Kira Sedgwick, that bummed me out because I thought of Haley Steinfeld and the fact that she's attached to the Bumblebee spinoff. That was something that'll traumatize me about this match even more because it reminded me of that other piece of trauma.
It definitely picked up in round two as Scott Mantz spun Oscar movies, went 2 of 4 for 4 points. Hal, unfortunately, spun Opponent's Choice, and when you're going against Scott Mantz, what else would he pick but movie release dates? It was bad for Hal as he went 1 of 4 for 2 points, and Mantz gets 3 steals in the round for an additional 5 points. So Scott Mantz goes from getting 1 point in the first round to 9 in the second. So what did you think about this turnaround?
Round two went as well as it could go for Mantz. Even though he didn't get a lot of points on his own spin, that Opponent's Choice set Mantz up for what might be his first time making somebody else pay via release dates. I think it happened one other time where his opponent spun Opponent's Choice. He selected movie release dates. Only that time did not go as expected. In this case, he really made Hal pay. This blew the match wide open. 5 points in steals. That is really impressive.
Yeah, I believe that was ETC that got the movie release dates and did quite well.
Good memory.
10 to 4, Scott Mantz. After round two, it was not looking good for Hal, but round three provided another great comeback. As Hal Rudnick got his 2-pointer with Xanadu, his 3-pointer, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Heat, and the pull that I did not see coming, the 5-pointer, Richard Linklater, the director of School of Rock, had no idea that was a thing. And of course, Scott Mantz on his side, getting his 2-pointer for the Cuban Missile Crisis in X-Men First Class, missing Seamus, the 3-pointer. But then, Pixar, an animated question, you never know how it's going to go, but Mantz nails it. 5 points, A Bug's Life. And Scott Mantz defeats Hal Rudnick 17 to 14. What did you think of this one?
Well, the Seamus McFly answer for Mantz, that is another example of Mantz not taking his time. He kind of rushed it, and I think if he had slowed it down a bit, I think he would have come to the right answer. And this could have been costly. This could have cost him the match because he was down 2 at that point. But he got the Bug's Life question to win. But I've always said, as long as Mantz slows it down and thinks things through a little bit and doesn't rush, he can be as dangerous as anyone. But sometimes he's so quick to pounce that he just makes a casual mistake. So he pulled it out, though. A win is a win. I like seeing Mantz succeed in singles. I want to see him make a run. He's capable of it, especially in certain categories. Rudnick, though, impressive round 3. I like that he pulled off all of his questions for 10 points. That is hard to do no matter who you are, even for Roca or Merle. Not everyone gets all 3 of their questions. So I feel like I've heard Xanadu. I feel like I've heard Rudnick make a Xanadu joke before. Regardless, though, Richard Linklater, not a lot of people remember that he directed School of Rock. It doesn't seem on brand for Richard Linklater. It doesn't seem like his style of movie, but he's made some other films with Jack Black, so it's not impossible to get. Great match, not necessarily, but entertaining, and that's what counts in this case.
Yeah, it absolutely was entertaining, and after round one, I did not know what was going to happen. And to see Mantz come back in round two and Hal to come back in round three, I think it really brought it full circle. And we got exactly kind of what we expected out of these guys. A lot of good back and forth banter. And it was a lot of fun. It looked like they were having fun. So that's all you can really ask for in a match like this with two guys that know each other so well and that have worked together many times.
Yeah, and I love Mantz's Clark Griswold entrance and costume. And you've got a little inside information on that Clark Griswold costume or entrance. So is that going to be in the interview, or is that something that you want to give us now?
That is in the interview, so we'll have to wait just a few minutes. He tells you exactly who it came from and why it happened, so definitely stay tuned for that. I guess in terms of entrances, we shouldn't be surprised about who it came from, but we'll get to that here in just a second. But actually, Brian, I got a question for you about Scott Mantz. What did you think of his singing voice?
It's about as I expected. I mean, I'm sure he's had some practice lately because of La La Land. So I'm sure that's him at his strongest. It sounds like I expected. It could be worse.
Did you enjoy he and Emma doing a movie release dates duet at the end?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Okay. Thank you for that. But yeah, I mean, we'll hopefully see these guys again. Both great big personalities in the Schmoedown. Two of the most probably well-liked people in it, so I'm pretty sure we'll see both of these guys again.
Christian suggested that Rudnick and Scarpino play. However, Rachel and Scarpino are now scheduled, so I think this is another example where the schedule is ahead of the action on the screen. So things are always changing in the Schmoedown.
All right, guys. I got the chance to sit down with Scott Mantz, talking about many things about the Schmoedown. We talk about John Roca and that rivalry. We talk about his partnership with Jason Inman. We talk about his match with Hal. We talk about everything. So stay tuned for this. Listen to my interview with the Mantz Man. We'll be right back after this little break. What's going on, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? I am here with a legend in the Schmoedown community in Schmoeville. He is the Mantz Man, Scott Mantz. Sir, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here, and thanks for taking the time to talk with me, buddy.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate your time. I know you don't have very much of it to give these days, so I really, really appreciate it. Let's first talk about what happened today. You and Hal Rudnick, father versus son, as it was brought up. First thing I want to start with is he gave you a gift. And I think that's the first time I've ever seen anyone give another person a gift in not a joking manner. Like, it was a thoughtful Father's Day gift. So what did you think of that?
That, I did not see that coming. And you're right. It was a genuine, sincere, selfless act from son to father. And look, he's not really my son, but he's only 8 years younger than me. But it was really sweet. It was a very nice gesture, and it was really from the heart. And I hope that came through, because I did not see it coming, and it was a Star Trek thing, which obviously everyone in Schmoeville and the Schmoedown knows that I'm more of a Star Trek guy than a Star Wars guy. So that was really, really cool and a great way to start the match.
I thought it was kind of awesome when you were opening the bag from Victoria's Secret, and you're like, oh God, what is this gag gift? And you looked at it, and you were like genuinely astounded and happy, like, oh my God, this is great.
Oh, well, not only did he give me like a legitimate gift, it wasn't some like joke, like you said, but it was a Star Trek alarm clock. I mean, that was the coolest. And the funny thing is, I collect Star Trek stuff, and I didn't have that.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Yeah,
that's totally pretty awesome. So, what made you decide to come out? I guess we're keeping like the father-son theme, but what made you decide on Holiday Road and the whole Clark Griswold get up?
I give all of that credit to Clark Griswold and dressing up like Clark Griswold and Holiday Road, to Miss Movies herself, Brianne Chandler.
Oh, yes.
Because I wanted to do, since we're playing up the whole father and son thing, I wanted to come out dressed as Darth Vader.
Oh.
Be like, I am your father, and, take off the mask and, play the match wearing Darth Vader's outfit. But I couldn't find one in time. And my friend who had one, like her husband, was using it, of all things. Wendy Lee, who's, she's on Movie Talk.
Cool.
Her husband was going to borrow his, but he was using it. So I emailed Brienne because she's a very good friend of mine, and she knows her stuff with movies. And I just thought if anyone would have a good idea of, like, a father to do, it would be her. And she said, why don't you do Clark Griswold, come out with Holiday Road? And I went, that's also with short notice. I didn't have time to, do, full cosplay.
Sure.
So all I did was put on my glasses and boom, Clark Griswold. So yeah, all that credit goes to the amazing Miss Movies, Brienne Chandler. She's the best.
Friend of the show and former, actually, fill-in host for the show as well. She filled in for me while I was out, so she's number one in our book for sure. So
she's awesome.
Yeah, we love her. Let's talk about round one. Now, it was a slog a little bit. Let's 2-1 after one. Hal had the lead. So you got 1 out of 8, and I know that's not your usual performance. So what were you feeling after round one? How did you feel?
What was I feeling during round one?
Well, yeah.
Because, while we were playing, I got a great night's sleep the night before. I wasn't, tired or anything like that. And while we were playing that round, I was like, what's wrong with me? I mean, this is embarrassing. And I felt like, people watching this are going to be like, what the F? Like, this is a shitty Schmoedown. But Hal, he just did 1 point better than I did, so he wasn't getting, hitting his mark either. But yeah, I was pretty embarrassed, and I was starting to sweat because I thought, this isn't even a good show. If I was watching this, I would be like, this is a waste. But then round 2 happened, and listen, when he got opponent's choice, and I was like, okay, this is a moment. I get to pick my own category. And, obviously that's my thing.
There's only one thing it could have been.
It's the only thing it could have been. So I went with it, and I owned it, and, listen, I mean, I don't know what it is with movie release dates, but yeah, that first round was honestly, as one of the opponents playing that round, I was embarrassed.
Well, let's jump out of that. Let's get to the more positive when you're in round 2 there. I didn't know you had such a good opera voice, I should say. I wasn't aware that was such a thing, but you were very musical in round 2.
Again, I was just I didn't expect to get movie release dates, whether I hit it or whether it was something like an opponent's choice. So the fact that I got it, I was like, okay, I'm really going to own this, and I just sort of went a little over the top with the soprano voice movie release dates, but it was all good fun, and Hal got a couple right, and I was glad that he got the ones wrong that he did because I scooped those up right away, and look, I rebounded in the second match, and I really needed to rebound in the second match. But then Hal crushed it in the third round.
Yeah, Hal absolutely destroyed it and got all of his questions right in round 3, which really put the pressure back on you to finish strong. And you did. You came up with the answer, the Pixar answer for the victory, and you defeated your son, father defeats son, if you want to call it that, Hal Rudnick. And now you go to 2-2. So you're moving on up, and you made some comments in the post-match interview about Jason Inman and about how you needed him by your side and you want to get back to stuff with him. So is that something you're looking forward to? Is that you want to go back to singles, or you want to do more team stuff?
Well, listen, I much prefer, not only do I prefer doing the team versus the singles, but if I'm going to have any teammate, and I mean this, it's got to be Jason Inman. He's not just a great teammate. He's a great friend, and like me, he's also a massive Star Trek fan. I'm more partial to the original series. He's more of a next gen DS9 person. I love those shows too, but we really complement each other well. And I've only known him for a short period of time, maybe like a year and a half or so. But he's just gotten to be a really, really awesome friend, and he's a genuinely super, super nice, sincere guy. And like, if I'm going to have anybody on my team, and it's not Miss Movies, because I would love to have her on my team. But if I'm going to have anyone on my team, it's got to be Jason Inman. He is, we're Team Trek, baby. We're boldly going, and hopefully we'll get to do another team match soon as Team Trek.
And Jason actually said pretty much the same thing. We interviewed him a couple months ago, and he said pretty much the same thing. He likes being on a team with you, and he thinks you guys mesh well together. So I think that's really great. That's cool that you guys found a common ground for not knowing each other too long to come together and form such a great team and a cohesive unit. And hell, you guys are super fun too. And those entrances, bringing out the Federation flag and all that kind of stuff. So you guys get into it. So that's really fun to watch. But quick question, if I may: triple threat match, you versus Jason Emmon versus Robert Meyer Burnett in a Star Trek only Schmoedown. Who wins?
I gotta say, my minutia knowledge of Star Trek is limited to, I would say, original series and Next Generation and the movies. Like when it comes to real specific things, like when you get into Voyager and Enterprise, I lose some of that expertise because I didn't watch those shows as much, and I quite frankly didn't enjoy them as much as the other three, including Deep Space Nine. I don't know. That would be a tough match because, Jason is really knowledgeable about Next Gen and Deep Space Nine, and Robert Meyer Burnett is also really knowledgeable about Star Trek as a whole. But yeah, my sort of encyclopedic knowledge of Star Trek is really limited to the first two shows because those are the shows that I watched the most. Those are the ones that I love the most. And, being a big Star Trek fan doesn't mean I have to like all of it. Just like being a Star Wars fan doesn't mean you have to like all of it. Like, I love Star Wars, but I don't like the prequels. I love Star Trek, but I don't like I don't say I like it. I don't like it. It's just I wasn't as into Voyager and Enterprise as I was the other three shows. I thought Deep Space Nine was a great show, very underrated, and I think ahead of its time with the way that it's serialized dramatic television, which every show does now. But to answer your question, that is a tough question. It depends on where the questions are. If they're balanced across all of the shows, it could go. It could be anybody's game. But if you're going to limit it to just for me, Star Trek is about the Enterprise, and Star Trek is about boldly going. And I know that the fifth series was called Enterprise, but for me, Star Trek at its core was the original series in the Next Generation. It was limited to just that, and the movies, including the Kelvin timeline. I feel like I would win that, but of course you can't limit the questions. They have to be all inclusive.
I like it. That was a very diplomatic answer. I appreciate that. Let's jump into something talking about teams. The match that you guys had with Team Patriots for the titles, it went down to the wire. There was a little bit of controversy, a couple of controversies actually. Well, let's talk about Buzzergate, as it's now called, first, where you and Jeff may have buzzed in at the same time. You may have gotten there first. Jeff may have gotten there first. The call was that Jeff got there first. I know you probably don't have any ill will against Josh McCouga, which is fine. Nobody should. But what were your thoughts?
Okay, listen, absolutely. This is nothing to do with my good friend Josh McCouga. I feel bad that he was put in that position where he had to make those calls because, I know that they upgraded the buzzers after our match, so something good did come out of all that. But, I went back and I watched the slow-mo and all that, and for a split millisecond, it does look like I hit that buzzer first. But if I was him and I had to make the call, there's no way I could fault him for picking Team Patriots on that one. It was a really tough call. And of course, I stand by it. It wasn't like a glaring thing where I hit the buzzer 3 seconds before they did call. So no, the bone of contention that I had with that match was in the question about Wally, because when my teammate Jason said he could have said Eve or Eva. And both of those answers should have been granted because they're said both ways in the movie. In fact, it's spelled Eve, but he says Eva, while he says Eva. So I feel like he should have gotten that question. I think we would have won if that happened. But again, that did change the game for future matches because now they have a thing where you can challenge the judge. So they didn't have that before. So now that they do, if those two good things happen out of that match, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, you hate to be the precedent-setting match, but you got to be glad that the precedent is now set for that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, let's move on. Let's talk about one of the great Schmoedown rivalries since it came over to Collider, and that's yourself and a guy that calls himself the Outlaw, Mr. John Rocco, who seems to just have beef with everybody these days.
Okay, you hit it there. All right, you hit it right there. He has a beef with everybody. You know why? Because it's good TV. It's good TV when you have a rivalry with somebody. And yeah, the rivalry started with Roca versus Mantz because of that first match, Bespin, and then of course he crushed it in every other match after that. But I mean, it's only a good rivalry when it's limited to two people. But he's got a rivalry with
Riley and Dan.
He's got a rivalry with everybody. So, but I mean, the good thing about Roca is he's a good friend of mine. He's a great friend of mine, actually. It's like a brother to me. But the rivalry comes in, the good TV comes in because you got two guys from the East Coast who have very strong, dynamic personalities, who are very competitive, and you put two guys like that in the room, and you're going to get fireworks. And that's what happens when the two of us get in the room together. And I think it's been a lot of fun, fighting him. I hope I get another chance to fight him solo, one-on-one. I'm sure that's what a lot of people want. And but when it comes down to it, he's a great friend of mine. But there's just something about us. Yeah, when you put us together in the same room, it's because we actually have a lot in common. We're like the same person in a lot of ways, and sometimes that just creates fireworks.
Well, that's the good thing about it. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So when you guys finally do get that the rubber match, Mantz versus Roca 3, it's going to be gigantic, and people are going to go over the moon for it. So I hope, I personally hope down the road we do get to see that one more time.
I hope so too.
Have you ever had like a weird interaction in terms of the Schmoedown with like a fan or anything like that? Anything strange?
Nothing strange, but some cool things. Just if I'm just out and about. I do a lot of Q&As after screenings at night, especially during award season. And sometimes people will come up to me after the screening, and I'm thinking they just want to talk to the person I just did the Q&A with, and they go, "Oh, big fan of you and the Schmoedown." So it's cool because it's like the work that I do for my day job is crossing over into like all the stuff I do for Schmoeville, and it's great because the Schmoeville fans. I've said this on the Schmoeville page many times over the last 3 years, but I mean it. Schmoeville fans are the best. They are the best. They're the most passionate. They're the most courteous, and it's so great to engage with them, like in chats on the Schmoeville page. Really, just the greatest, most supportive group of people, men and women, and obviously passionate movie fans, and that's what it's all about anyway. And but one time, just a real quick story. I was a judge at the LA Film Festival last year. And I was standing in line at the theater waiting to get popcorn, and I was checking my phone, and I'm thinking, I'm there as a judge, and I'm going from one screening to the next, and the guy behind the counter gave me the popcorn and soda, and he goes, "Are you going to fight Roca again?" I was like, all right, yeah, Schmoedown, let's do this, So it's just great, like there are a lot more people watching these, whether it's Schmo's No Show or watching the Schmoedown. And Schmoedown is really getting very, very big. It's getting a lot bigger than it is. I think we're going to see some more, because we just had like the Power Rangers players do the Schmoedown.
Right.
I think you're going to see a lot more celebrities and filmmakers do the Schmoedown because people love to see them do something different. They don't want to see the same old boring junket interviews that are like everywhere.
Right, you're exactly right. I think that's a cool thing about it, and for it to be so big to where you go get popcorn and people are already talking to you about it, I think that's great. Clark told a story about how she went to get Chinese food or something, and somebody came up to her and said, "Hey, I really like your work on the Schmoedown." Like, she does all this other stuff, but it's like that's what she's recognized for. So I think that's pretty awesome. But one thing I want to talk to you about, and this is off the cuff, this is off the Schmoedown cuff, but I just have to know as a fan. There's a podcast, a show that you used to do with Alicia Malone. It's called Profiles with Malone and Mantz. And big fan of the show, and you guys would go through the filmography of directors and actors and different things, and you guys had some big guests on: Sigourney Weaver, Michael Douglas, Ivan Reitman's been on, and you guys got to 50 episodes, and you kind of capped it, but you left the door open to maybe one day revisit Profiles. So can you give us an update on that? Is there something, are we going to see it again?
Well, here's what I'll say about doing Profiles. 50 episodes that Malone and Mantz did over the course of a year and a half, and it is one of the accomplishments in my career and life that I'm really most proud of, because ultimately, even though we got the idea initially at the very beginning from Christian, he proposed it to Alicia, and then Alicia brought me on as her partner on this, and we really sort of took it from there. And week after week, or every other week, because it became a bi-weekly thing, we were the only ones really doing all of the work on that show. Alicia was pulling clips and editing the It's a Wonderful Life biography. She was pulling the sound cues for the films, and I was doing all the outreach to the studios and the talent to get the guests to call in. Or occasionally we would sit down with like Al Pacino or Will Smith or Christian Bale at a junket. And, there's a lot to be said about being able to have the kind of relationship with the publicists and the talent reps that they were like absolutely more than willing to help us out and secure these guests for us. And, Brett Olson, big shout out to Brett Olson. He's the one who did those graphics, the black and white graphics. He gave the show its look. But, we were the only ones doing all of the work on that show. So we had to do all the research. We had to rewatch all those movies, 5 movies that we had to rewatch. And, we had other jobs, and we were doing Profiles. It was a labor of love, and we loved doing it. But as time went on, I felt like the show was growing. We were getting the show placed on official Facebook pages, and studios were tweeting out Profiles. And I thought, wow, this is really going to be something. But then after we sort of hit our peak in the fall of 2015, going into 2016, our views they weren't growing, and we just lost a lot of support. And in the end, it just became too much work. And we love that people still ask us, hey, when is Profiles coming back? Because obviously people really enjoyed the show. And look, if I had to be honest, working with Alicia Malone is definitely one of the best things ever for me, because we just really were great partners. We were a great team, and she's definitely one of my closest friends. And, I miss it. I miss it for that respect. But after we did step away from it, we both got busy with other things. Alicia wrote a book, which is coming out this August. It's called Backwards and in Heels. Book about the history of women in film, and she's doing Filmstruck, and she's doing Fandango, and I'm doing, I'm busy with Access, but I'm also doing Q&As. I've been going to film festivals. I've been doing stuff for Fathom events, and some other things are going to be happening in the future, I hope. So just went like that, and but having said that, if the right opportunity came along for us to do a show like Profiles again, and like something that we were getting paid to do. Because again, it was a lot of work. And, if the right opportunity came along and it was the right timing for both of us, I'd like to think that Profiles would return in some way, shape, or form in the future. But, who knows? We're both busy doing separate things. And I definitely miss the show. It's like I said, being able to get those kind of people to call in, like Ridley Scott, Francis Ford Coppola, and Michael Douglas. And in one show we had Sigourney Weaver, Ivan Reitman, and James Cameron called in on one show. That was huge. That was huge. We did the Alfred Hitchcock show. We had Eva Marie Saint and Kim Novak and Tippi Hedren. The Hitchcock Blondes called in live while we were taping the show live. That was massive. And Alicia and I fed off each other really well. It was a lot of fun. And, I put my heart and soul into that, so it's hard to step away from it. But, after a while, we just had to move on.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience and from talking to people in Schmoeville that there are a lot of hashtag film geeks and a lot of hashtag profilers for life that definitely await the day that happens, in whatever form that may be. And of course, never say never is always the thing. You never can these days. I mean, geez, Roseanne's coming back after 20 years and all this kind of stuff. So who knows?
Well, you know what? I'll say, what I would say on every single show. If you really love profiles and want profiles to come back, then tweet us both at Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz, at Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz. Wait, because it's all about the pause. At Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz, and state your case for bringing profiles back.
And you got 50 episodes to go through. If you've never listened to profiles, go back and listen. You got 50 hours plus of entertainment. So as we close here, I just want to get maybe your thoughts on like the Schmoedown as a whole, like something you want to get across, and where can we find you, and what are you doing if somebody wants to find you?
Okay, well, the best way to find me is on Twitter and Instagram at Movie Mantz. That's Movie Man with the TZ if you're not already following me there. So you can definitely follow me there. You can follow my work on Access Hollywood and follow my reviews on AccessHollywood.com. And you definitely catch me on the Schmoedown. Catch me at Screen Junkies Movie Fights once in a while. I think I'm doing it this coming Thursday, this weekend, the weekend of the 10th. I do want to do my own show. And I've got a lot of contacts with getting talent. I want to do my own show. My dream is to do like an award season type of show podcast, hopefully for Collider when award season is around again. That's something I really want to do. In the meantime, just follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm very active and respond and retweet and all that fun stuff.
Well, I appreciate your time, and thank you once again for coming on the show. And it's been a great treat for me. I'm sure it's been a great treat for our listeners. So we hope to have you again for sure.
Well, it's been a great treat for me, and I'll say it again. Schmoeville fans are the best fans in the world. Thank you all, really, for your support, and it really is just an amazing thing. And I got to give a big, huge shout-out to the men who started this all, Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis. Not only are they great friends of mine, I am so proud to know them, and through those guys, I met Ken Knapsack and Mark Riley, and and Emma Fife for life, and Clark Wolf, and Brienne. It's because of those guys that I have been introduced to this community. They started an incredible thing with Schmoes Know, with the Schmoedown. So big props and much love and respect to my friends Mark Ellis and Christian Harloff.
Well, there you have it, Scott Mantz, ladies and gentlemen.
Before we get to our team and singles previews for the week, I wanted to take a second and tell you guys how you can support the show. Please go to the Schmoes Know iTunes feed, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a comment. It helps out everybody on the channel, no matter if you're on your computer, your smartphone, perhaps a tablet.
I'm done with the tablets.
You will be helping us out tremendously in every show on the new SK Plus feed, including this show, the Schmoedown Rundown, the Wanger Show, Don't Be a Beardo, and Harloff podcast. Please support all of those shows. Be sure to also follow the show on Twitter.
Not on Snapface and all that, Instant Chat or whatever it is.
And now back to the show.
All right, guys, welcome back. It is preview time. Almost said team preview, but I would be wrong. It's an Inner Geekdom Fatal 5-way this week between Coy, Jandrew, Erica Ishii, Mike Kalinowski, Emma Fife, and Charlie Feldman. A lot of people in this one, Brian. We've got a couple debuts for Inner Geekdom. We've got Mike Kalinowski making his Inner Geekdom debut. Erica, Coy. Well, how do you see it going, Brian? Who you got?
Well, I'm saying this because I looked it up. Coy Jandreau. I looked it up on his Marvel show. He's won other competitions in the online YouTube movie space, whatever you want to call it. So that tells me that he knows things. Thus, I'm going to go with him, as this match is really nothing but newcomers to Inner Geekdom. Yeah, Kalinowski and Fife have played before in the Schmoedown, but they've never played in Inner Geekdom, of course. So who knows what we're going to get out of this. I'm going to be awfully curious to see, though, what Killer Kalinowski can do in this match. He's an interesting player to watch, as we still need more data on him, because I don't know what kind of player he is. He could be an elite player, but we just don't have enough tape on him. And Charlie Feldman, she's got my attention as a potential dark horse, so I'm very curious to see how this turns out because we don't know really what to expect from anyone.
Yeah, we're actually in agreement on this one. I'm also taking Coy. I think he's the person that sticks out to me right away in this. As much as I do enjoy Mike and Emma, I don't really know much about Erica and Charlie. I know they're... It just seems to me like Coy is the person to beat here. You got Marvel movie news, and of course you got Mike from DC movie news, so it's kind of like a Marvel versus DC. You kind of get that little bit going on there. All these people know each other, so it's going to be kind of interesting to see how it goes out. It should be a fun, friendly match, but I'll take Coy as well. Let's jump into the singles preview this week. It is the Crusher making her return. Rachel Cushing versus the producer / seducer, possibly the best nickname of the game, Nick Scarpino. Who you got in this one?
Rachel Cushing because she's the Crusher. Scarpino's seduction does not work on players with her level of dominance. Rachel all the way.
Rachel's been one of my favorite players to watch recently. I'm a big fan of hers. I got her over Nick Scarpino as well. I don't really have much to add. I think you pretty much just said it all. The Crusher, always.
What's next?
Well, right now, we're going to take some Facebook questions. You guys were cool enough to respond to my post that I made on the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Facebook page, and we got some good questions this week. Got a couple we're going to answer, so Brian, let me throw this one your way first. This one comes from Anthony Deglamini. Oh, man, I apologize for that last name. Besides the three-way championship match, what collision match would you say you are most intrigued by? I feel like I know what your answer is going to be, but go ahead.
Well, as I said earlier, I think this is the best event they've ever put on. All these matches are incredible, whether it's Rotten Tomatoes and Nerds Watch, Jeremy Johns versus Navarro. But my pick, Harloff v. Snyder. I love all these matches on paper, but Harloff versus Snyder is the hot ticket. Snyder is streaking while Harloff is hesitant given the criticism he suffered following his win over the Beast. So this match could be Harloff's last hurrah, or hurrah, if you will. And by year's end, this match could be the reason why Jeff Snyder is the one sitting atop the Schmoedown throne. We were asked this question recently about who's holding the belt at the end of the year. And while Merle was my safe pick, I can totally get behind your pick of Jeff Snyder, and this match could very well set up that outcome by spectacular.
I'm surprised Frank didn't make that pick. I actually thought, Brian, it would go a different way. I thought your most intrigued match would be Nerds Watch versus Rotten Tomatoes, because that's mine. But like you said, this card is huge. Every match is great. That's the one I look forward to because I really enjoy all the personalities involved. I think that's going to be one heck of a match, a high-scoring affair. And we're going to see what team is going towards the top, which team's going to take a step back. So I'm most interested in that, as Rotten Tomatoes is one of our favorite teams on the show. I think that's fair to say. Yeah. And Nerds Watch as well with Ken and Rachel. Just love what they do as well. The next one comes from Linus Babcock, who says, who is one competitor that you didn't like at first, but then grew on you and became one of your favorites?
Magic Hat Makuga drove me nuts last season. Whether it was him bringing out the wheel in his loud suits or doing interviews in his loud suits or finding any way to be seen or heard during the match, I just couldn't handle his overexposure most weeks. And he's played in more matches than anyone with 13, I believe. And when he'd play, he'd find ways to stall, like asking for questions to be repeated after waiting for the clock to run out, hence the Josh Makuga rule. In fact, I interviewed JTE once and I said, hey, JTE, why don't you and the other competitors do what Makuga does to create more time for yourselves? But that's a completely separate point altogether. I eventually interviewed Josh Makuga, and I've come around on him since I now see Josh, not just the wild man. So his fantasy segments, I once thought those were superfluous, but they're now one of my favorite parts of the Schmoedown. So Josh Makuga, he proved me wrong. He is one of my favorites now.
I wouldn't say this person is one of my favorites, but just given their recent performances in the Star Wars Schmoedown and the Inner Geekdom Schmoedowns they've been doing, and now they're the number one contender for the Inner Geekdom Championship, I've turned around significantly on Jeremy Johns.
Oh, good pick.
I don't know. For some reason, the guy I just never clicked with him. But here lately, he's really turned me around. I really like what he's doing. I like the vibe he's giving off. And the guy's deceptive with his knowledge, but man, he's got a lot of it. And I could very well see him being the next Inner Geekdom champion. But for me, it's Jeremy Jans is the guy that's turning around. Our next one comes from Sam Nolan. This will be our last one. And he asks, what are your favorite competitor nicknames, i.e. the Outlaw, Commissioner, Beast, etc.?
Well, it's not our last question. We had a late addition to our question list, but to give you a response for this one, Little Evil, Classy Clark Wolf, Sassy Stacy Howard, which was a new addition today, the Pit Boss, which I have a hard time counting the Pit Boss just because it was a nickname that was born before the Schmoedown, much like Producer, Seducer. They're great nicknames, but they were not born on the Schmoedown. So as of right now, I would say Little Evil or Classy Clark Wolf are my favorite nicknames.
Actually, really only two come to my mind right away, and that's, of course, I like Bibiani, I like the Beast, and I like the Outlaw, that's fine. But the Crusher, so I like the Crusher. It was a classic wrestler named the Crusher. He was kind of a badass, so I like that. And then I really enjoy, probably my favorite nickname is the Urban Gladiator. Why? I have no idea. I just find it incredibly entertaining. So those are a couple of my favorites.
I don't mean to rain on your parade, but like the Pit Boss and Producer Seducer, it was born outside of the Schmoedown. So I guess it counts. I mean, it's used in the Schmoedown, so I don't know. We'll have to go to the judges on this one. But we also had a late addition to our question list. This is from a listener named Brian Davids.
I don't know him.
He writes, the term fighter, in quotes, should be avoided within the Schmoedown. The reasons why are obvious. What official term can Schmoedown fans collectively come up with in order to officially designate a Schmoedown competitor? And he says, open this up to the comment section. Commenters, what term would best designate someone competing in a movie trivia Schmoedown besides fighter?
Competitor? Maybe it's a little bit too long.
It's a little wordy, a lot of syllables.
I'm not ready to call them superstars yet. I'm not ready to call it that. And I'm not ready to call them combatants because that's kind of the same thing. That's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, because it's Schmoedown, an argument could be made for schmoes, but because of the existing brand, it would just make people think of Christian and Mark. But people that play in the Schmoedown technically are schmoes because they're playing in a Schmoedown. But I think it's a term. I think a term is needed. So, comment section, what do you think the official term should be besides fighter? Let us know.
Put it on a t-shirt. How about that?
Yeah. It will go on a t-shirt too.
There you go. Well, we can't actually confirm that it'll go on a t-shirt, but you can always write it with permanent marker. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Schmoedown Rundown. I want to once again thank Scott Mantz for joining us. What a great thrill it was to speak with a guy that I really enjoyed, one of my heroes in this industry. Scott Mantz is amazing. Hope to talk to him again. Really appreciate his time. My name is Aaron. You can find me on Twitter at ATTitanium. Of course, follow the show at SD Rundown. Follow Frank Janisch at FrankieJ29. Check out his article on schmoedown.com, which will drop in the next couple of days. And he's always got the stat information, so definitely check out Frank there. Brian Davids, where can you be found, sir?
You guys can find more of me, Brian Davids, on Twitter at BDF331. Check out my TV film podcast at filmschlubspodcast.com or wherever podcasts are found. I'm reviewing Wonder Woman with Collider Nightmares Clark Wolf, the Schmoedown's Clark Wolf, as well as Hollywood Reporter's Aaron Couch. I've also got interviews coming up with Better Call Saul's Michael Mando and The Leftovers co-creator Tom Perrotta. And special thanks, Clint Lajeunesse, Floyd Pinkster, and Shane Bowman at HeisenbergChronicles.com and Ray Ora for all their help with graphics this week.
Oh, and one more thing. You can follow me on PlayStation Network at Titan7817. Thank you to the people that have added me. Let's kill some stuff. And until next week, it is the Schmoedown Rundown. We'll see you.